in our minds, the real potential of generative AI, of all the amazing stuff that's happening in technology right now, is to sort of take away all of that slog, to take away all the stuff that you don't want to do, so you can like just like zero right in on whatever it is that you do best, and have sort of the software you're using really be just like a net positive in your sort of ability to express yourself, rather than something you kind of have to contend with, something you have to like deal with and negotiate with.
All right, here we are, folks. Tommy Z in a place to be. And I got two very special folks with me today who are going to let us know whether we should be looking for new jobs or not, because they are right into the field of AI and music production. And I've already had a chat with Keith, and I know they are on our side. So this is going to be a great conversation because they know what's going on exactly with AI and what they hope to accomplish with technology and music production. But in the interest of finding out for myself, like, what is the future looking like with the robots and music? And how can we get excited about it instead of always talking about, oh, AI is going to replace everything? I actually want to get inspired and I want to get excited about the possibilities. And I think Sam and Keith are the best guys to talk to about this. So, Sam and Keith, welcome.
Thank you, Tommy. Great to be here.
Hey, Tommy.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Just tell me briefly about who you are, a bit of your background, and then what are you doing right now on behalf of your company?
So I started very young with music, like just like my parents made me learn like piano when I was like in primary school, and like violin, and that slid off me very, very quickly as I decided that like classical music was not for me. But like eventually it kind of I picked up like guitar in school in like secondary school, and like that was like my entryway into like meeting all my friends, right? Like my teenage years and like all the way through uni, like I met friends through music, like playing in bands. Eventually I learned how to DJ. I met friends through that interest as well, music production eventually. And like it's such an integral part to the way that we share like experiences with each other. But like the act of making music or learning to make music is something that's just like people struggle with it in proportional amount to like how much like how powerful it is. Specifically music production, right? Like Sam and I have had very, very similar experiences where like we will have people who decide like they want to be the next big music producer, they want to make the next banger track, and they come to us and like, how do you use Ableton, how do you use Logic? I want to like do that thing, right? And like we kind of try and teach them, and like it becomes very obvious that like it's like way more difficult than they thought. Like to just get started, you have to have knowledge of music theory, you need to know sound engineering, you need to have like a pretty high comfort with like complex user interfaces in computers, and that's just to get started, right? So it's like it's months of work to really just like to get to anywhere. And like this isn't just for beginners as well. Like we found that like with musicians, like people who are extremely proficient in like instruments on their own, you put them in front of like a DAW and like they just become worse musicians, right? And like that's always like such a shame to see.
Yeah, totally. So my background, similar to Keith's, started with like classical piano. Then in high school, started getting into DJing production, and it was like likewise, just like that sort of discovery process, getting into music production, and collaborating with people was like really quite transformative for me. Like prior to that, I was just sort of like programming was kind of my thing, and that was it. I didn't have like a lot of friends, didn't have a lot going on for me. But that sort of meant that I had, the time and the technical predisposition to figure out music production software. And then, yeah, so as Keith mentioned, once you figure out how to use something like Ableton or Logic, you will start to have this experience over and over again of people coming to you saying like, hey, I want to start producing my own music. Can you show me how it works? And then seeing them use the software for the first time and seeing the dismay in their eyes as they realize like, oh no, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. Been using music production software since high school, and over the years just kind of noticed like the software is still mostly the same, right? There've been all these crazy like technological breakthroughs happening in other creative fields. Like, generative AI is showing up in a big way for a lot of fields right now, but like a lot of these innovations, there have been interesting innovations happening in that space for the last decade on sort of a smaller scale, and they've been showing up in applications like Photoshop and other things along those lines. But I was like, just always wondering, like, when is all this new technology going to show up in like my workflow, in the creative process for music production? Because, the tools today still largely look and work the same as they did when they first came to market, like in the 90s, right? So that was sort of like thought number one that struck me as a bit strange. It seems like there's room for more innovation in music production software.
Just as someone who doesn't really do a lot of research into even like the languages that drive DAWs or the music technology part, has there been, in your estimation, technology available or at least potential to take the DAWs that we're using now into a whole new territory and somehow these companies are holding back on it? Or is this still kind of like still early as far as the music part? Because I know the photos, the visuals, all that AI, there's a lot of disruption there. But like, I guess DAWs are getting updates now, but could they be a lot more advanced and revolutionary than they are for whatever reason?
Yes, I think they could. I think there's like a lot of sort of unexplored space in sort of the ways that DAWs are like could work, and I don't think it's not happening for any kind of sinister reason. I also don't think these big companies are lazy or anything like that. The thing is, we're kind of in this like most of the people who are paying for music production software today are people who have been using it for a while. And if you're a big music production software company, you're going to keep making money if you sort of keep the software working the same way, and you risk sort of rocking the boat and losing customers if you make dramatic changes, right? Every time Ableton gets an update, you get like a million angry tweets from people who like their favorite key command just stopped working in the way that they expect, and it's like a major disruption, right? So like if you're a company with a lot of active paying users, the decision to take a big risk by like radically altering the way that your music software works is sort of it is a big risk. The downside potential could be quite significant for you, which is why I think that like music production startups such as ours are probably in a better place to really sort of define like where DAW technology sort of goes next. That we've really learned through the process of building out WavTool has been this particular kind of software turns out to be like really, really dramatically difficult to make. There's just
Mm.
won't get like too deep into the weeds and like the sort of the technical internals here, but like it's just like a mountain of really unique technical problems that like require unique skills, experience to be able to solve, and just like the pool of engineers who really have all the things that they need to be able to sort of innovate in this space is I think fairly small, which is why we haven't seen more new DAWs come to market in a really sort of significant way.
Let me ask you this. I always like to start with the destination. That's what we teach our students. I'm like, well, it's best that you define your vision and destination because then you can calibrate your compass
Mhm.
and figure out, okay, what are the steps that I need to take there? So I want you guys to just tell me, why are you getting up in the morning? What's so exciting about what you're doing? And like, try to get the excitement to rub off on us. Like, let us see the way you are seeing music production 5, 10 years from now. And this is why you're so excited about it. To us average musicians who may not be, fully aware of the potential and the possibilities of how technology could actually enhance what we do.
The short version is really just closing the gap as far as possible between your inspiration and your output. Like if
Mm,
you just take a video recording of what you're doing on screen when you're producing a song today, a lot of the work is like finicky knob twiddling. Like some of that might be exactly what you love doing. That might be like the center of the bullseye for your personal kind of creative expression. But some of it, probably quite a lot of it, is everything you have to do in between those like core moments of creative expression, of you doing your thing, of you sort of being yourself as a creator. In our minds, the real potential of generative AI, of all the amazing stuff that's happening in technology right now, is to sort of take away all of that slog, to take away all the stuff that you don't want to do so you can like just like zero right in on whatever it is that you do best, and have sort of the software you're using really be just like a net positive in your sort of ability to express yourself, rather than something you kind of have to contend with, something you have to like deal with and negotiate with to get results out. That's where I think we're ultimately headed, is like pure human expression, leading to sort of produced music with much less of the like the parts of the technical process that you as an individual don't enjoy. For different people that means different things.
yeah,
um, if you like two people make the same song, they're going to have a completely different looking DAW session to do it, right? And I
sure.
think like sort of maintaining that individuality while still sort of giving people a very streamlined, fun, intuitive experience is the vision for us.
But I could actually see, like, because everybody's different as a musician, AI would probably play a large part to adjusting its kind of like collaboration with the musician. right? Because it would be
Yeah.
learning how the musician works, for instance. And then, well, if you want to twiddle knobs, then let me take care of the thing you don't like, which is maybe putting things on grid, or I don't know, setting up return channels. But I think that's pretty exciting if I think about it, where technology actually learns what is my workflow and my preference, and then it just does everything I don't want to do. Keith, tell me what you get excited about as far as the future.
Yeah, I mean, like all of that clearly is very exciting, but also like what we're leaving out is that it expands the possibility space as well, right? With new technology, always comes new opportunities to express ourselves in new ways, right? And with the AI, it's like you get new instruments because like there's new ways of manipulating, like just a very very like atomic level, just like samples, waveforms, all of that. Like you can transform things in new ways with new inputs and new outputs to just have create new sounds, new things that like never were possible before because of technology. And it's always been a loop that's been present in different forms in as music becomes like more and more involved. So this is not new. This is not something that's like we've never seen before, but we've seen it like just create new genres, create new ways of just like people like doing creative new things. And it's because of the expansion of the toolkit, not because of the tools themselves. A lot of the people like experimenting to create AI tools is just like a black box where you just like have an input and an output. But like the important thing is like this term we always come back to is human in the loop, where you always have like a part of the process, a hand in the process of like guiding it, and then it's a collaboration between the AI as well as yourself to kind of create something that like is completely new, because AI can't come up with things that are new. That's for the humans to do.
And can you tell me specifically what is the part of the workflow where WavTool would come in for a musician? Like, who is it catered for, and what does it actually look like? Who is this tool that your guys working on for? And then how does it practically integrate into the workflow, or how you imagine it will when you get it to a place where you want it to be?
Yeah, so I mean, our ultimate aspiration is to make a true sort of main stage DAW, something that is competitive with the established software today. And I think as like a key element of this, we really 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 want to address that like months long learning curve that it takes even a super experienced musician to sort of get off the ground with this kind of software. The like the the one sentence description of this is best option for you on day one, best option for you at the height of your career. So today,
Interesting.
the software today is, I think it tends to work best for people who have a bit of context in music production, who have like prior experience with other DAWs, who understand kind of like like what the moving pieces are in a piece of software like this, and who are looking to sort of involve the future in their workflow, take advantage of some of the new things that are possible, like just have this experience of like collaborating with AI, having sort of new ideas come together through this like human machine combination.
Sometimes we get people in our academy who are wonderful songwriters,
Mhm.
and they might have a great voice even, but maybe they're older, and maybe like it's very daunting for them to get into the technology of it. But
Mhm.
imagine if they could just open a laptop, fire this up, and like it would pretty much do everything except for playing the guitar and singing. But if it's a question of like getting the levels right, or like figuring out where could you go next with this if you get stuck, I think
Mhm.
I could totally see that, where technology actually is kind of working seamlessly behind the scenes, and you just get to do what you do well already.
Yeah, exactly. That is what you're describing is the aspiration very much. And like, if you're an excellent guitarist and you've ever worked with a producer, somebody who's running the show, they're controlling the computer, telling you when to record, etc. That's kind of like the experience that we'd like WavTool to feel like for a person who's coming in with that kind of a background, someone with experience performing an instrument, or as a singer, but not so much with the technical elements of it. We'd like you to be able to sit down and just using the tools that you know how to use already, your instrument, like your voice, just
Yeah.
the words that you type into a computer, work like interactively with the machine to get the song made that you have in your head.
And then you also mentioned that you want it to be day one, but also like at the height of your career. How do you see it working with someone who, let's say, maybe very proficient with the DAW and the production and automations and setting up custom templates? What is the thing that then WavTool is gonna surprise them with and make them go, "Ooh, I got to really reconsider uh all of my experience on the DAW, when really, like, maybe I don't have to do all of this stuff. Maybe I can just focus on the groove and the music, right?"
Yeah, well, so I think for like the much more experienced music producer, there's like that part of it. The workflow acceleration is a really big draw. But
Mhm.
then just like as Keith mentioned, like the new sonic possibilities. There's like all kinds of like fascinating things that are sort of now becoming possible with generative AI. Like new ways of making music. We'll show you some of them today. Like just like in and of themselves are fantastic opportunities that are at the moment sort of trickier to experience in like the existing established music software. Like you have to leave the application to go and use another app that you're probably paying for example, timbre transfer. Whereas with WavTool, you kind of just get that. It's bundled. It's worked right into the user interface in a very sort of like straightforward way. All right. So what we're looking at here is the WavTool user interface. This is running in the browser right now. You can go to wavtool.com and give this a try. We're also going to be handing out some promo codes as part of the competition that I think we're announcing here.
Yep.
If you've used the DAW before, much of this is going to look familiar to you. We've got a timeline, we've got MIDI and audio clips. Audio can be warped with these like warp markers and tempo adjustments. We can transpose, we can zoom right in and do sort of sample accurate audio editing. So all the features that you'd expect from like a professional grade DAW are here in some form. We can just take a quick listen to this project. This is a project from a tutorial video that's going to be releasing soon. I think probably by the time your viewers see this, this will be up on our YouTube channel. We got sort of an intro over here. Skip ahead. So yeah, if we dig in a little bit more, we can check out one of the interesting things that WavTool does differently is signal routing. So in conventional DAWs, you're probably used to this like linear presentation of effects. You've got like effect 1, effect 2, effect 3, and the signal kind of goes down or horizontally depending on which particular DAW that you're using. One thing we do differently is we present the signal chain as a graph where you can have interesting things like effects with multiple outputs. We've got this one that I really like to show off called the amplitude splitter. What amplitude splitter does is it takes a signal in, separates it into a bunch of different frequency bands, and then spits the loud ones out of one output and the quiet ones out of another output. So we can do interesting things like combine these two outputs in different ways, apply distortion to only the quiet frequencies, for example. There's a lot of fun that can be had here, and anyone watching, if you want to try this out, it's a lot of fun. We also got an included sample library, a whole bunch of sort of like pre-made sounds in a bunch of different genres that people can just click and drag into the application, and an included synthesizer, are like wavetable synth, along with a couple of other sort of sample-based instruments. This will be familiar to anyone who's used synthesizers like Serum or other related instruments. We got a handful of like included wavetables. You can set up automations, etc.
Okay, so
That's
this really strikes me as a DAW with some really interesting features that I don't have in Ableton right now. Like the
Mhm,
sound splitting thing is very interesting.
mhm.
And then what's the AI part? Like what is the thing
Right.
that from the AI perspective, I guess, is happening here within?
One AI feature that makes a big difference for a lot of people is Composer. If we fire up Compose with AI over here, what Composer is going to do is it's going to like give us just some AI generated note suggestions here. So if we set this thing to chords mode, it's going to give us some polyphonic output. We can take a quick listen to these by mousing over them. So we can add this like chord progression, then add a bass line underneath it, and now Composer is going to write a bass line that goes along with the particular notes that we've already got in this other track. Now, something that's
Mm,
important about this is the AI output is getting written into a clip, which we can at any time reach in and edit. And Composer is going to sort of continue any ideas that we write into these clips for ourselves. So this is like, sort of like the clearest demonstration of the interaction between the human composer and like the AI assistant.
okay, so I've had fun basically coming up with this track
Mm-hmm.
as anyone does initially.
Mm-hmm.
And then after being in a loop for 3 hours,
Yeah.
I give up on life and my music career because I don't know where to take this next. And
Yeah.
this, for me, like right away, is the moment when I go, okay, I bring in the composer, and that
Mhm.
uncomfortable part of taking the track to a totally different direction or a bridge or whatever, which I have zero inspiration for after 3 hours of being stuck in a loop. I see
Yeah.
this as being a kind of a game changer here because it literally, like, it's all within a doll. Like you said, I don't have to leave.
Mhm.
I'm right in my arrangement.
Yeah, exactly. And like this composer feature is like really one of the greatest hits of WavTool right now. This is one of the like the most useful things for people who are coming in with like limited music theory experience. You know, maybe you've got like the melody in your head and you're comfortable sort of drawing that out in the MIDI editor, but you're like trying to come up with chord progressions to go underneath it. That can be
Mm,
really daunting for somebody who's like, you know, maybe even if you've been like a singer your entire life, but like coming up with chords is like a relatively different skill, right? And composer is just excellent at this, and it comes up with like occasionally really wild ideas that will very pleasantly surprise you. Yeah, so experienced musicians love that. Beginners love it for just getting ideas out in the first place. You know, people who are struggling to even get a song off the ground at all with other software can really get it moving quickly with Composer.
so can you tell me in
So
layman terms how composer knows, like, where is it taking from the rest of the track to understand possible ideas it could offer as far as chords,
mm,
let's say?
yeah, gotcha. So the way Composer works is it looks sort of in a window of space around the clip that you're writing into. So it'll look at
Mm,
all MIDI tracks on, or yeah, all sort of MIDI notes on all other tracks. It knows which of them are coming from drum instruments and which of them are coming from melodic instruments. And it will look at sort of like recent history, what's just before, and sort of what's coming up after to, whoops, sorry about that, to come up with sort of suggestions that fit the notes that are happening around it. That's kind of the context window is looking at sort of like the things that it's seeing in other like MIDI tracks adjacent to it. So
gotcha.
if a user wants to use Composer to accompany recorded audio, for example, like we could take this bass line that we got here, we can fire up convert to MIDI here, which is another artificial intelligence feature. Many
Okay.
DAWs have like some form of convert to MIDI integrated with them. One thing that we do a bit differently is we let you sort of tune in real time the way that the audio is converted into MIDI notes. So you can see as I drag this dot around, the MIDI output
Yeah.
is sort of adjusted. So we can just sort of like move this around until it looks like we're getting all the notes that we're looking for here. And now with this MIDI clip created, we can mute it, so we're still hearing the original audio for the bass line only. But then Composer can, like if we add a clip adjacent to this, Composer will be writing notes that go along with the audio bass line
Gotcha.
that we have here.
So I could do that
Um,
with a vocal, let's say, like I just sing some stuff in, and how accurate would conversion be, and then the prediction of like the composer?
So Composer will work extremely well in that case. The conversion, it can be a little bit. Sometimes you'll have to clean up the MIDI a little bit afterwards, but
Sure.
like by moving the dot around and sort of tuning it to get it to like approximately the right place, you can save yourself a lot of time. Like the normal way that this works is you run the conversion, you just get what it gives you, and then sometimes it's all kinds of noisy extra notes. Sometimes it's like way too few notes. On the subject of using your voice to create like another instrumental part, now let's get into timbre transfer. So the thing that we're
Uh-huh.
demonstrating right now, we're actually looking at a pre-release build of WavTool. So the thing that we're going to show off right now may look and work a little bit differently when it gets to production, but the feature inside of WavTool, we call it prototypes. The underlying technology is also referred to as timbre transfer. What we got here is a snippet of that vocal sample that you heard earlier. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this audio clip. We're going to fire up the prototypes skill. Skills are kind of like these sort of specialized UI AI workflows.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to choose saxophone and click apply saxophone to selected clip. Now that's done running. What we can do is replace the original file and take a listen to this. And we've
Wow.
taken a person singing and turned it into a saxophone. We can also do the same thing, turning it into a Stratocaster. It's a So now it's got this like strange quality where it kind of sounds like speech and like a guitar at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess if you're making the case for for this being realistic, maybe it's like the best wah wah pedal ever. But if this vocal recording isn't a person singing words, but a person going doot 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 doot, then you wind up getting results that sound much more like a real guitar
Sure,
output.
sure, sure. But even then, I mean, is there a possibility to kind of mix between the signals?
Great question. So I mean, like, because we're working inside of a DAW here, we can simply duplicate the track, drag in the converted output, and now mix them in sort of any way that we see fit.
Sure.
But yeah, one thing that's very exciting about this technology is there's all kinds of interesting ways that we can sort of define the sort of like the internal definition of what it means to sound like a Stratocaster or a saxophone. We can do interesting things like blend these two things, like give me a guitar saxophone version of this sound or something along those lines.
Whereas people got, we've pretty much explored, I'm not saying exhaustively, but people are used to chord progressions. People are used to certain patterns in a harmonic structure. And I truly believe that what catches the ear is the novelty of a sound never heard before.
Yes.
And this, to me, is like just a gold mine of possibilities without it being strictly authored by AI. So like handed to you on the plate. But instead, what I'm thinking is let me come up with a melody, say using my voice, and then I can layer it to make a very impactful and unique, surprising, let's say, chorus or whatever. Because of this timbre transfer, I learned something new today. That's amazing.
Yeah. The like the potential for like fascinating new sound design with this technology is like just incredible, and like for human expression as well. For example, like this also lets you do like beatboxing and turning that into a drum kit. And this is much more dangerous, and we are like being very careful with how we sort of allow access to the following thing. But this also allows you to transform one person's voice into another person's voice. You can make like 100% convincing, make it sound like you're the president of the United States.
Right.
Yeah. Which of course the potential for abuse and danger with a feature like this is quite high. And of course, this is also very concerning for a lot of musicians who, like we've seen quite a lot of examples of many different reactions on the internet to have like famous artists having their voices cloned and put into other songs that they never actually sang.
Which I think brings up so many implications of like copyright in the future. Will it even be a thing? Like in the future,
Right.
will it be a thing? How will you know what is real and what isn't? I mean, it's really just a little bit scary even to consider all the implications. But in the meantime, assuming good faith from, let's say, a musician who is true to their desire to be original and authentic and create something interesting and not just copy somebody else's voice because it's famous, I think this provides a lot of interesting possibilities.
So this is not released as of today. There's a chance it will be later this evening after this call. This is basically the thing that we're working on all day. So it's pretty close to being
So it
released.
depends how this call goes.
Yeah, exactly. It depends how exhausted we specifically are after this call. But so far, I'm feeling more charged up than anything. So, yeah,
Right
I would say like in the next, I can guarantee that it'll be out by mid-December if it's not out much sooner than that. Another fascinating element of the timbre transfer process is like you can create your own sort of output sounds, right? Like in this case, the Stratocaster, that was me just playing my guitar for 5 minutes. You can take 5 minutes of source content from anything. We're going to automatically strip out voices for the safety concerns that I mentioned earlier. But any instrumental or like, non-voice content you want to create a model out of, you're able to do that. So you could do this with like a weird synthesizer noise. You could do this with your pet, or you could do this with just like any sound you can think of. You can turn into something that can then be a timbre transfer output, which is like an extremely exciting possibility. So that particular feature is going to launch after just using sort of like the pre-made ones that we're launching with. And we're going to be working with artists to create like interesting timbre transfer outputs that are sort of available by default within WavTool. But then, in the next month or so, we'll be rolling out the option for people to create their own models as well.
If I was to try to come up with a track within WavTool, is there anything that I would not be able to do?
Short answer, yes. We have everything you need to make professional quality music. There are a few sort of caveats to that. So, for example, we don't have support for third-party plugins at the moment, simply because we're focused on this like browser-based release, and like the technical hurdles for getting VSTs to work inside of the browser is like unfortunately quite high. We will have it one day, but for the moment, you're kind of limited to the sounds that are present within WavTool. But to make up for it, we give you stuff like timbre transfer and like other like really interesting sort of sound design options like this.
And I can
But
record my own things in here, like if I'm recording a
yep,
guitar or voice, whatever.
yep, exactly. So you can hook up any audio device that you'd normally be able to record with, arm the track, and hit record and go.
Yeah.
MIDI works as well. If you have like MIDI devices plugged in, you can use those as well as like your computer keyboard. Like I can just arm this piano here. That's just like me pressing the A, D, G keys on my keyboard.
Yeah, gotcha. So in a way, I mean, not having third party VST support, I mean, it's like you just try to be like the other DAWs. Whereas I mean, I see how it makes sense for you to work on what makes this revolutionary instead of trying to be like the other DAWs. Like, why would you try to be like the other DAWs? They don't have
Mhm.
what you have. The trouble that I always find is that the human, very often, the artist, allows the DAW to define what they're gonna do. And it's like, is there any wonder why everybody sounds the same? Whereas here, right? Like because yeah, because everyone's doing the shuffling hi-hats because that's how you do it in Fruity Loops or whatever. Like I'm just saying that here, what I'm seeing is a creative possibility of finding a unique sound because you're really experimenting with this timbre transfer thing. This is blowing my mind really because I know what the top presets on Serum sound like and Omnisphere because everybody's using it.
Right.
And in the age where everybody's using the same tools and everyone's looking at the charts on Splice to see what's the highest sample,
Mhm.
that's not a route to originality.
Yeah.
Simply put, like it's just not.
Yeah. 100%. And like what's really exciting is there is a there is truly new technology. There is like there are sort of options and spaces to explore as a result of sort of the innovations that have been happening over the last few years that like I think just open this up tremendously. There's like all kinds of like fascinating new space to explore in musical styles, in sound design, in everything else. And it's really just a matter of like connecting people to the technology in a way that like lets them fully experiment and really just explore this new space. And that's really what we're trying to do here is give people like all the tools to step into the like this future of music production and sort of help determine what that future is.
Sure. Is there anything else you want to show inside of the software?
I guess just a couple other things that people might sort of get a kick out of. We do also have, I don't have a full, like an audio file of a full song loaded up in here, but let's pretend this was a full song.
Mhm.
We can open up, additionally, I'll demonstrate the chat bot. So if you switch over to chat mode, which will be the default, this is where we can talk to Conductor. And Conductor will sort of help us use the application, like direct us to important parts of the UI that we might need to do things. So this is like very helpful if you're sort of coming to WavTool for the first time and you're not sure how things work.
Okay.
But from within Conductor, let's imagine we had a full song loaded up in this audio clip. Instead, we could say like, turn this into a karaoke track. Conductor will think for a moment, and then it will direct us to the stem split skill. We can fire up AI stem split, run it on this track, and this is going to give us 4 new clips that we can drop in, separating out the vocals, bass, drums, and all other instruments into separate
Okay.
clips. Yeah.
So I can see how
in
this is literally like I'm walking off the street. I've never opened a DAW. I'm a musical person, or at least I think I am, and I want to do some cool stuff.
Mhm.
I'm just talking. It's like talking to an engineer. Like,
Yeah.
can you remove the vocal for me? Yeah, sure. Here you
Yeah,
go.
that's the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty cool.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty cool for even an advanced user, right? Because if I could just have the hardest thing about being a solo musician with a home studio is
Mhm.
that you can't get out of a loop because you don't have a jamming partner there. Like there's no one to play ping pong with.
Mhm.
And so you don't have someone saying, "Oh, just delete this and just do a B section."
Mhm.
No way, man. I'm not deleting anything. I'm paralyzed in this loop. But whereas if I have like someone who I don't have to play ego wars with, or some stranger in the studio, but like an
Mhm.
assistant where I say, "Where could I take this track?" Or
Yeah.
like, "How's the mix sounding?" Or whatever, like these stupid questions, or like, "Can you help me improve the hook?" I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty interesting, because then I become the curator. I'm like the Rick Rubin. I'm the true producer. I'm saying, "Nah, I don't really like the hook you came up with for my needs. Any other
Yeah.
ideas?" But it's pretty cool, because at a point when you're stuck, you basically have this outlet for very constructive ideas that you could choose to then incorporate right away into your arrangement.
Yeah, exactly. It is like really quite something to like to experience becoming unstuck thanks to AI. It's like once you've felt it, it's pretty hard to go back to audio software where when you get stuck, you just have to stay stuck. You're like, how the heck did we ever tolerate this? You know? Um,
So, but then the
yeah.
danger is, of course, and I know this from working with um, Chat GPT,
Mhm.
is leaning on it. Like, I'm supposed to come up with a presentation outline,
Mhm.
and I'm just struggling with it, to be honest. And I went to Chat GPT and I'm like, "Listen, I need a presentation outline. It's got to have the tone of this. It's got to inspire the audience to do this." And I'm just like,
Mhm.
wow, this is amazing. And
Yeah,
it almost makes me go, well, what do they need me for? Maybe tender
totally. Yeah.
transfer can take care of my voice. And like, if it's slides only, I don't even need to be at this presentation. Um,
Yeah.
but you see where
Yeah.
I'm
No,
going with the danger. It's like, well, am I still even in the process here, or like, is AI doing everything?
100%. Yeah. So that like we're very careful with like exactly how WavTool sort of becomes more capable. Because there's a million and one applications out there that will take a text prompt and give you a finished song, and like we don't think anyone actually wants that, right? Like it might
No.
be useful for you if you just need like if you totally don't care about your background music, you just need something and you have no budget and like but the vast majority of people care that their music is coming from a person, and the vast majority of people who are making music actually love the process of making music, right? And like just additionally, I don't know, I don't want to destroy human creativity with this product. I really want to accelerate it and bring more of it out. And so like you'll find that like if you start asking Conductor to do the whole job for you, it's simply not going to do. It's be very encouraging and very helpful. It'll get you like the best tools to help you make like the changes you're after. But you're still sort of tuning. You're dragging the dot. You're like picking the suggestion and editing it until it's the thing that you like, right?
Yeah.
Conductor is just like giving you sort of like access to a user interface that will sort of allow you to express yourself more efficiently than you would have if you were just kind of left with general tools that are purely there to serve sort of all purposes, right? So yeah,
That would
I'd
be
like,
funny if like Conductor had all these clever replies to you. Like, if you're just like really leaning on it, it should say like, "Okay, well, I guess you're putting me in the credits, and I'm getting half the copyright here, because I'm really writing this thing for you, you know?" So
that's hilarious. Yeah, we should
Yeah.
add that. We should have it start demanding royalties if you kick it
yeah,
Yeah.
off.
it's like,
we
put
we
me on
make we make
Twitter.
very sure that like when we design like the UI and the capabilities of the AI is that like it's always pushing buttons that are available to the user themselves. So at any point you can just like I'm done with like the automated part. I can like just shove that engineer and this aside, like to use your analogy, and
Yeah,
like take
yeah,
control. And you have all those buttons here. We made very sure that it's like every discrete step that you're doing, whether you're splitting the audio, you're converting it, you're transcribing it to MIDI, like that's all steps that you can do by yourself if you were so
sure.
inclined. But also, with the AI, it can link them up to do that for you if you decide that that's not the part that interests you. We always go back to like in these conversations, we always go back to like we want to. There are parts of the music making process that people are interested in, and they want to focus on that. And then all the other stuff is just like stuff that they would be happy to let someone else handle. It could be
Yeah,
AI, it could be someone else that they collaborate with. So
yeah.
that's kind of like where we see like where we can fill in the gaps using AI for sure.
And I can tell you, in our business, and not just in our business of like creating original scores or songs for big brands and their campaigns. But even in the film scoring industry, the not so exciting truth is that we are very often presented with a musical reference, which
Mhm.
everyone on the team got used to. The client approved it, everyone approved it. The editor's been editing, let's say, the campaign or even a scene in a film to that cue, to that
Mhm.
song that they found somewhere, but they can't use it because it's too expensive or whatever. It's not available, or they can't adjust it and it doesn't work exactly. So I can
Mhm.
imagine, and and this is work that is not art a lot of times for us. It's just craft. So we
Right.
actually just want to solve the client's problem as soon as possible without getting sued. So I see basically this being quite a potential game changer because I can drag, let's say, maybe in the future, the movie file into the DAW or
Mhm.
WavTool.
Mhm.
I can drag the song right under the movie file and say, hey, could you rewrite this track for me, but keep the feeling? Because the thing is, you could code this because according to
Mhm.
musicologists, which I always have to get in touch with when we are being inspired by a reference track, basically the
Mhm. Mhm.
client
Mhm.
wants it to sound like the Black Keys, but the reality
Yeah.
is we can't do the Black Keys. But also the
Right.
reality is these are just three damn chords done with a distorted guitar. So we're not talking about rocket science, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
so according to musicology, basically we just have to do very tangible things like do three chords, that's not copyrightable. Don't
Mhm.
be in the same key
Mhm.
because then it'll be obvious. So we got to change keys. And that's about it. Like chord progressions are not copyrightable, right? But if like the assistant or the composer could just help me to accelerate that process, then I could just get the job over with very quickly by listening, judging, maybe tweaking a few things, and then going to the client, bada boom, bada bing. Do you like this? And they're like, yeah, yeah, this is beautiful. Great. I spent 80% less time, but I get to invoice you the same amount I would have if I didn't have this assistant. So
Yeah.
do you think is this like a possibility or what?
I think, well, so yeah, I like our approach for this will probably take a slightly different form than you're describing, but like generally this kind of productivity gain for music producers is like exactly the potential that we're trying to unlock here.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess like just to clarify, like how this would be different, the process is always going to be interactive. You're always going to be like, making sort of decisions on a smaller scale rather than letting the AI just run with it and do the whole thing for you. We're going to carry you straight to the next decision. You're going to make it very cleanly, and we're going to speed you off to the next one. And like in far fewer steps and far less time, you are going to create something that, you know, has the qualities that matter about this Black Keys track, but is yours, is unique.
And to be
And
clear, I don't want the
yeah.
AI to do everything for me because if that's the case, I'm not going to be sending an invoice
Right,
very
exactly.
soon. Right?
Yeah,
Like
nobody. I don't think anyone's generating like finished music with AI and then saying I made this and like throwing it up on Spotify or selling it
yeah,
to a client, right? Like,
yeah,
or
yeah.
I'm sure there are people doing this, but we're not
There
making software
are,
for
but
them.
we're trying to talk to people who haven't lost their integrity yet. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
I I mean, let's assume we're talking to musicians who are passionate about tweaking sounds.
Mhm.
Because this is what gets me passionate about music is that I'm not a trained musician, but I've delivered
Mhm.
very impactful pieces of music that people have seen because
Mhm.
I'm just a DJ, really. That's my background. I'm presented
Yeah.
with a bunch of sounds and I'm just ordering them in space and time in order to cause a moving human being, like a human being on the other side of the speaker to go, oh,
Mhm.
wow. So I'm the judge and I'm just, so really this stuff is really resonating with me because I was never the professional arranger, composer, whatever. I'm just a guy who hears something and they go, oh, it'd be cool if it did this, this, and this.
Mhm.
And it seems like this is exactly where things are heading. So I get to keep doing what I love doing, which is like being, I would say, more of a, and of course there are other musicians who are creating sounds. They're playing guitars, they're playing the vocals, but I never was that guy.
Mhm.
So I need to surround myself with other inputs, like with other people. and I'm really good at actually ordering things. So a musician
Mhm.
sings something, they're like, "Was that any good?" And I'm like, "No, that wasn't very good, but it can be good if we do this." It's the
Yeah.
perspective. We all need it, right? Like we all need someone to like sit there and go, "I don't even know where to take this." And someone else is sitting there going, "I know exactly where this could go," right? So this is very exciting because we could actually still be in the studio without our pants on, without having to
Yeah,
invite anybody and like,
I'm not
you
wearing
know, have a
pants
deep
right now. I'm just kidding.
it's
I'm wearing
amazing. Pants
pants.
are not necessary. Pants are overrated. I got to tell you guys. But I would recommend them in the winter and in public. I've learned the hard way that it's probably a good idea. Okay, is there anything else you want to show me inside of the tool?
One feature really quick that I feel we should mention. There's also a sample generator. You can write in some text and get 5 to 10 seconds of audio. You combine this with stem splitting. This is a great way to just like quickly get some kind of interesting AI generated beat, AI generated like instrument sample.
So this project is actually an example of that. So they basically generate an R&B track, broke it down like into stems, and then like use that as the building blocks to rearrange and recreate like
Gotcha.
the creator's vision, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so like starting from this generated sample, we can come in and then like warp things up, get it timed up to the beat, and there's just like a lot of really interesting sort of creative possibilities there, which is like sort of back on the subject of working with clients. This is a very exciting possibility for client work in the future. Get the client to AI generate stuff until they hear like a sound that they like, and say like, okay, I kind of like what the AI came up with here. Can we go for that kind of a tone, right?
Yeah.
Then then you're like, you can probably hew much closer to the reference that they gave you in that case without being as concerned about copyright.
But even zooming out, when I look at this DAW, well, I don't know if you guys feel comfortable with me calling it a DAW.
No, we do. Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
That's the dream. That's the goal.
Okay, good. But you know where I see the application here also is that it's going to create a lot more musicians, and I could totally see kids like
Mhm.
being exposed to this and just jamming with it in a very natural way. They get things
Yeah.
pretty quickly, but still, when I show Ableton or whatever DAW to my son, it takes a bit of time to explain like everything, and they're not even interested to go that far. Maybe they do want to lay down a beat and a melody and a bass line and like a very kid-friendly track with a very
Yeah.
simple, silly melody that's very catchy.
Mhm.
But I think just a short interaction with your tool instantly would give them an understanding of what a DAW is, like much better than
Mhm.
anything else that I could imagine.
Yeah, totally. I think like the kids who are like encountering technology now for the first time are going to be, sort of the first generation of like AI native technology users, and like for somebody coming up with like that sort of expectation about software, an application like Ableton or like Logic Pro today is going to seem like very very archaic compared to something that you can talk to. That like I think the
Right.
core of the idea is there are ways that people know how to express what they want, and over time you can learn to express what you want in Ableton's interface. But most people know right now how to express what they want in text or with words, right? And so like I think like the sort of the AI native generation is going to be sort of used to just being able to express themselves in ways that they already know and understand, and
Yeah.
hopefully WavTool can be sort of the music production application that provides that experience for them.
Are you able to like paint a specific, or have you guys gone through this exercise, or do you ever think about it? Like, can you see what music production will be like, let's say 10 years from now?
So the interesting thing about it is it feels like there's like some new revelation, some new breakthrough like every week that completely changes what the future looks like, right? I don't want to make a specific prediction here because everybody who's making specific predictions about where AI is going to turn out to be wrong, and in many cases spectacularly wrong. But I think like one thing that I can say with confidence is that it like the barriers to entry are going to get a lot lower. This sort of fact about like you simply bringing whatever things you know how to express and getting a result that you're happy with is going to sort of increasingly be the way creativity looks. That I feel pretty confident. As for what that specifically looks like what is literally on your screen, I'm not sure.
Or if there
We're
is
working
a
as hard as
screen.
right. If there is a screen, right? Okay, yeah. Here's crazy thought number one. All right, Keith, you got this one out of me. Yeah, I don't think the screen's going to be around forever. I think like one of the most inherently sort of complicated things about using music production software is that like music is something that takes place over time and you experience it with your ears, and a screen is something static, you know, relatively speaking, and it's like this two-dimensional plane. And like learning to read music is complicated because you have to translate time into a two-dimensional surface. Learning to produce music is complicated because you have to translate, you know, time and all these different instruments that you're hearing into something that's on a screen. And that's just a very unnatural transformation. So my like radical vision of the future of music production is like eventually there's not going to be a screen. It's going to be you speaking to something, maybe as though it was a like an engineer, and you playing your instrument to express ideas. Like, oh yeah, what if the melody went like this? Play a few notes, and then the internal model of the song updates in that way.
I can
Yeah,
totally see
there's
that.
my
I
crazy
can
prediction.
totally see like a voice, just a voice. It's just you and the music and the sound, and like you don't have, because so often working with the DAW or even looking at your music is distracting. I have
Yeah,
to remind
exactly.
myself to like shut off the screen when I'm listening to a mix or something,
Yeah.
because I'm not really
Very-
listening. I'm like, oh, this automation is drawn wrong. It's like, what? You're supposed to listen to the music. Like,
Yeah,
um,
totally. And there's all kinds of other stuff that shows up with like the computer element as well, right? Like for me, when I'm writing, I very often use my guitar when I'm composing, just because it's like that's where melodies and stuff. I find it like easier to find new stuff that way.
Yep.
But like if you're recording and you're using a guitar, you're constantly taking your hands off the instrument to do something on the computer. You hit record, you have to like get back into position really quickly, right? These interactions are just way better when it's you saying to the computer. We have like an internal demo of this where you just say start recording, and then it starts recording. Like just the fact that you don't have to take your hands off the instrument is such a huge boon for just like the ergonomics of creating music, right? I
yeah.
think it's one of the main reasons why like you can take
Oh,
a super experienced guitarist, put them in front of a computer for the first time, and suddenly they get worse at making music until they like develop all these new skills. Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot there that can be improved. Anyway, I'm on
Yeah, I
a
can
crazy
totally see that.
future rant that I usually
No,
try
no, no.
to hold.
No, but honestly, I think that whatever you say that sounds like crazy, we are moving so fast now that I think if you're not being crazy with your vision, you're actually gonna lose in the future. Because like whoever's crazy enough to consider this now is already gonna
Mhm,
start incorporating that. So when the screens go away, all the big
mhm.
dinosaurs are suddenly gonna go, "What? That was
Yeah.
crazy." Yeah, it was that's exactly where it was going. The screens came when the computers came,
Mhm.
but the Beatles weren't recording to screens.
Right.
There was no screen in the studio at Abbey Road at that time.
Yeah, 100%. You
And
definitely don't. It's not, definitely not a prerequisite for making amazing music that there's like something on a screen somewhere, right?
we're still like being delighted by Beatles. Like every like
Mhm.
so then I can totally see how screen has empowered, of course, it has enabled, of course. But if I could be without it, I probably would be. If I could
Yeah.
honestly just be in the studio with my headphones or my monitors and go, just sing in some kind of a melody with my voice and go, what could we do with that? And then
Mhm.
like I hear what about these chords? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But you know what? Change the third chord. That's the real thing. That's the flow.
Yeah.
That's the magic, I think.
Yeah.
If you could just emulate like a jam session with your friends, and then at the end the computer's just like, that was cool. I just picked out all the parts that you thought were great and made a song out of it,
Mhm.
And it
right? And you
brought
never have to
beer.
think. Yeah, and it
If it
brought
could
beer.
bring beer, if you guys could figure that out, like no
Okay,
screen.
new product. New product.
Yeah.
WavTool 2.0 is actually just like a beer fridge with like a microphone and
Oh
audio
my
output.
goodness. That is
Is that
amazing.
before or after the robot that plays the drum, Sam?
Robot that plays the drums is happening like Q1 next year, so
Okay.
probably after. Yeah.
All right.
No, but I think that's amazing, and I'm glad. I mean, I would love to hear if you have any other sort of like crazy predictions. I would love to hear them because, like I said, I just don't think anything you say is crazy enough these days.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's one crazy optimistic prediction. I think we are going to see a return to like scenes, to small like artists with thousands to tens of thousands of followers, like mass proliferation of people who are able to make a living with music, um, and like a reduction of like the megastar that everyone listens to, simply because so many more people are going to be able to express themselves. Which like I think there's probably like never been a better time to decide to try being a musician than right now, because like yeah, I suspect sort of like industry level changes are coming to sort of the way music, like non soundtrack music, is going to be consumed. Like we're going to have better tools for like getting you connected to
Okay.
things that match your specific tastes. We're going to have more people making more different kinds of music. There's going to be like suddenly just an explosion of new ideas coming out in music, and like too many of them to follow, and for things to dominate. My sort of optimistic prediction here is that like the small creator becomes a much bigger part of the music landscape.
I intuit in a way that the more sophisticated and better the AI and technology gets,
Mhm.
the less delighted we will be with the output, in a sense that I always say, like, okay, so what if I see a unicorn flying through space eating a hot dog,
Mhm.
and I know that AI generated it? That's good, but as a
Yeah.
human being, there is no deeper message for me there. I'm just amazed
Right.
that technology was able to slap that together. But ultimately, I believe what we're looking for as humans is for another human to express something that we
One hundred
are
percent. Yeah.
thirsty for. Right,
Yeah.
right. So if the
Absolutely. Yeah.
technology can be invisible and seamless in bringing humans together to resonate together over a human experience, then
Mhm.
that's where I want its place, and not as a barrier or as a obstacle or as a thing to learn. And then we worship it for its, like, for it. It's like, no, that's not what
Yeah.
I want anyway. I mean, maybe there are others who think differently.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you on this. I think like the human is a really essential element of the music. Like when I listen to a song and it really like gives me goosebumps, and it's like, or just like you get that like, oh my god feeling from listening to an awesome piece of music. The thing that makes it awesome is that like there is a person out there who came up with this. Like
That's right.
I love Lewis Cole for this, because every time I listen to one of his songs, I'm like, that is such like that idea is so simple. It was just sitting there this entire time, and Lewis Cole found it before anyone else did, and like it's
Yeah.
without like a human coming up with it, a lot of that magic is lost. Like I don't think people actually want AI generated music as much as many people think they do. And yeah, it's
Yeah, and even the people who
very wrong
truly
on
do,
people.
even the
Yeah.
people who truly do, which is like the suits on the 37th floor of a head office of, let's say, a media production company, which are like,
Mhm.
little, these humans are very uncomfortable. Did you see the
Right.
invoices they're sending? They're just difficult to work with. They're prima donnas, and then they want to charge money. Music
Yeah.
should be free. For us, of course, we want to, like, we should obtain it for free. But of course, when it airs, we should own all the rights, right? Like that's the suits talking. Um, but I'm convinced, as somebody who's helped big brands to move humans with music,
Mhm.
that if they get their way and music is free because AI will give it to you for free, you're not going to move human beings anymore. I can guarantee it. Like, and I'm saying this when AI is at the point when it's creating amazing music and it's
Mhm.
like fully polished and hitting. That's when people are going to start looking for badly recorded mono recordings of Bob Dylan, who can't
Yeah.
even hit a note properly to save his life,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
that will be interesting, and
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
perfectly produced track will not.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People will no longer want to be delighted. They want to be surprised, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the proliferation of like the infinite perfect customized playlist for you on Spotify, where every song is AI generated at the second you listen to it, perfectly calibrated for your interests, is like, this is going to make authentic, surprising, uncalibrated human expression, I think, a lot more exciting, a lot more valuable. Yeah, I'm very bullish
So,
on the importance of people.
so it's very interesting, and I think refreshing for me, because this is the first conversation I'm having with people involved in the AI technology music production space. And you would
Mhm.
think, I would expect this conversation to be like, oh yeah, like music production or technology, amazing. We're going to get it better and better, just like nerding out on the technology and praising it for technology's sake. But it's very refreshing to me that you guys are actually approaching this from someone who is a musician at heart and is saying, no, actually, the technology should be invisible. We want the human to show up.
Mhm.
I very much resonate with it, and I think anyone listening to this will resonate with that as well. So I think that's amazing. Is there anything else you guys want to leave everyone watching and listening with, as far as inspiration or sort of things they should consider so that they can answer their call of being a musician? You've already mentioned, like, there is hope that you
Mhm.
see a future where the small, not the superstar, but someone small with a unique thing to say, to sing, whatever, can surround themselves with some fans. So that gives hope. I'm always saying that gives hope. But if there's anything else you guys want to mention that hasn't been said already, please.
I guess I would just say, like, the beginning of a new sort of technological revolution is a great time to find something new and unique that's never been done before, and that's a great way to stand out, a great way to start your career. There's like no end to fascinating new things that are possible with audio and music technology that are happening right now. There's our product. There's loads of others. I would just encourage people to experiment, explore, try new things. There's like so much amazing stuff happening right now. The people experimenting with technology today are defining what the future of music sounds like, and everybody has an opportunity to be a part of that. The tools are amazing. They're easy to use. They're like tons of fun. There's no reason not to get involved and start exploring.
We've been predicting the future, but honestly, the best way to do this is just make it for yourself. So yeah, I think go forth
Yeah.
and just like we're trying to like give people the toolkit to do that, and we're very excited to see what people will.
I agree. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. This has been very inspiring to me, especially because you guys are working toward a future which sees technology actually empowering the human and being invisible in the process. So we can actually have fun in the studio, get inspired, and just lose ourselves in the process of creation, which I think it's all about ultimately.
Thank you very much, Tommy. It was a great pleasure for us to be here and speak with you.
Yeah, this is delightful.
Right
Thanks,
on,
Tom.
guys.